In the frozen wilderness of the Russian Far East, where temperatures plummet to -40 degrees Celsius and snow lies 3 meters deep, a Siberian tiger named Anya moves silently through ancient forests with her 2 six-month-old cubs. What she doesn't know is that her bones are worth more than $70,000 per kilogram on the black market, making her family a target for professional hunters equipped with military-grade technology and international trafficking networks that generate $50 billion annually. This is the story of why fewer than 3,200 wild tigers remain on Earth, down from 100,000 just a century ago. It's the story of an industry that sells false hope to millions of consumers while driving one of the world's most magnificent predators toward extinction. And it's the story of how traditional medicine practices, when corrupted by commercial interests, can become instruments of ecological destruction. The tiger bone trade represents one of the most lucrative forms of wildlife trafficking on the planet, embedded within the vast ecosystem of traditional Chinese medicine that serves over 1 billion consumers across Asia and increasingly throughout the world. To understand why Anya and her cubs are being hunted across the Siberian wilderness, we must first examine the economic forces that have transformed ancient healing traditions into a modern industrial complex worth more than the gross domestic product of most nations. Traditional Chinese medicine, known as TCM, encompasses thousands of years of medical knowledge and practice that has provided healthcare for Chinese populations since ancient times. The system includes acupuncture, herbal remedies, dietary therapy, and the use of various animal and mineral products believed to possess therapeutic properties. While many TCM practices have scientific validity and provide genuine medical benefits, the commercial exploitation of endangered species represents a corruption of traditional knowledge by modern market forces. Tiger bones have been used in TCM for over 1,000 years, traditionally prescribed for treating arthritis, rheumatism, and various pain conditions. Ancient practitioners believed that consuming tiger bones would transfer the animal's strength and power to human patients, a concept rooted in the principle of sympathetic medicine, where like treats like. However, modern scientific analysis has conclusively demonstrated that tiger bone contains no unique therapeutic compounds and provides no medical benefits beyond those available from common domestic animal bones or synthetic alternatives. Despite this scientific reality, demand for tiger bone products continues to drive a global trafficking industry that operates with the sophistication of international drug cartels. Tiger bone wine, created by soaking tiger bones in rice wine for months or years, sells for $700 to $1,500 per bottle in upscale restaurants and traditional medicine shops throughout China, Vietnam, and other Asian countries. Premium bottles aged for decades can command prices exceeding $10,000. Tiger bone pills and powders represent another major market segment, with processed products selling for $100 to $300 per package, depending on claimed purity and potency. These products are marketed as treatments for everything from back pain to erectile dysfunction, targeting consumers who believe that traditional medicine offers superior alternatives to modern pharmaceuticals. The marketing often emphasizes the rarity and power of tiger ingredients, creating premium positioning that justifies extraordinary prices. The manufacturing process for tiger bone wine involves criminal networks that span multiple continents and integrate various forms of organized crime, including human trafficking, drug smuggling, and money laundering. Tiger bones are typically processed in small facilities hidden within legitimate businesses such as restaurants, traditional medicine shops, or food processing plants. The bones are cleaned, crushed, and soaked in large ceramic vessels where fermentation occurs over periods ranging from months to years. Quality control in this illegal industry varies enormously, with some products containing little or no actual tiger bone despite premium pricing. Sophisticated trafficking operations may use DNA testing to verify authenticity, while smaller criminal groups often substitute domestic animal bones or synthetic materials to maximize profits. This fraud creates a secondary market in authentication services that further complicates law enforcement efforts to disrupt trafficking networks. The consumer base for tiger bone products includes wealthy individuals who view these products as luxury items comparable to expensive wines or rare delicacies. Restaurant culture in some Asian countries treats tiger bone wine as a prestigious business entertainment expense, similar to how expensive champagne might be used in Western business contexts. This social signaling function creates demand that is relatively insensitive to price increases, making the trade highly profitable despite enforcement risks. However, the largest consumer segment consists of individuals who genuinely believe in the therapeutic efficacy of tiger bone products and are willing to pay premium prices for what they perceive as superior medicine. Educational backgrounds among these consumers vary widely, with some highly educated professionals purchasing tiger bone products based on cultural traditions rather than scientific evaluation. This sincere belief in efficacy makes demand reduction extremely challenging through education alone. Vietnam represents the world's largest consumer market for tiger bone products, with surveys indicating that up to 30% of urban households have purchased tiger bone wine within the past year. Vietnamese demand stems from both traditional medicine practices and newer cultural associations between tiger products and business success. Wealthy Vietnamese entrepreneurs often serve tiger bone wine at important business meetings or celebrations, viewing it as both a health tonic and a symbol of prosperity. The pricing structure for tiger bone products reflects multiple layers of markup as materials move from hunters through processing facilities to retail consumers. A complete tiger skeleton weighs approximately 15 to 20 kilograms and sells for raw prices ranging from $50,000 to $100,000 depending on the animal's size and the buyer's location. Processing this raw material into finished products can increase total value by 5 to 10 times through various manufacturing and distribution stages. Professional tiger hunting operations employ sophisticated techniques that combine traditional tracking skills with modern technology, including helicopter surveillance, thermal imaging cameras, and GPS tracking systems. These operations often involve teams of 10 to 20 individuals, including trackers, hunters, drivers, processors, and logistics coordinators. The high value of tiger products justifies substantial investments in equipment and personnel that would be economically impossible for lower value wildlife trafficking. The weapons used in tiger hunting include high-powered rifles, capable of killing large cats instantly, while minimizing damage to valuable bones and organs. Professional hunters prefer headshots that preserve the skeleton integrity, while ensuring quick kills that prevent escape of wounded animals. Night vision equipment allows hunting during periods when tigers are most active, while reducing risks of detection by anti-poaching patrols. Transportation networks for moving tiger products from source countries to consumer markets involve the same routes and methods used for drug trafficking, including concealment within legitimate cargo shipments, corruption of border officials, and use of multiple transshipment points to obscure origins. Container shipping represents the primary method for moving large quantities of tiger bone wine, while air transportation is used for smaller, higher-value products such as pills and powders. Money laundering for tiger trafficking operations utilizes various techniques, including trade-based schemes where product values are manipulated on shipping documents, cash-intensive businesses that can absorb large currency deposits, and international remittance networks that move funds across borders without traditional banking oversight. The integration of tiger trafficking with other criminal enterprises provides multiple revenue streams that can mask the specific profits from wildlife crime. Corruption represents a critical enabler of tiger trafficking throughout the supply chain, from park rangers and local officials who allow hunting activities to customs officers who facilitate international shipments. The enormous profits available from tiger products make it relatively easy to offer bribes that exceed the annual salaries of poorly paid government employees. This corruption undermines conservation efforts while weakening institutions in countries that can least afford additional governance challenges. Against this backdrop of industrial-scale exploitation, individual tigers like Anya must navigate landscapes where their very existence has been commodified and their body parts assigned market values that exceed the annual incomes of entire villages. Anya's story begins in the Sokote Alin mountain range of Primorski Krai, where the world's largest cat species struggles to raise her cubs in one of Earth's harshest environments while being hunted by humans equipped with technology that would have been unimaginable to the traditional hunters who once shared these forests. Siberian tigers, also known as Amur tigers, represent the northernmost tiger subspecies and have evolved remarkable adaptations for surviving in subarctic conditions that would kill tigers from warmer climates. Adult females like Anya can weigh up to 180 kilograms and grow longer than 3 meters, including their tails, while males can exceed 300 kilograms and reach lengths of nearly 4 meters. Their thick fur coats and substantial fat reserves provide insulation against temperatures that regularly drop below -30 degrees Celsius during winter months. The territory required to support a single tiger family in Siberian forests can exceed 1,000 square kilometers, as the low prey density in these northern ecosystems means that tigers must cover vast distances to find sufficient food. Anya's territory includes portions of river valleys where red deer and wild boar concentrate during winter months, steep mountain slopes where roe deer seek shelter from storms, and dense forest areas where various smaller prey species can be found throughout the year. Raising cubs in this harsh environment presents enormous challenges even without human interference. Tiger cubs are born blind and helpless, weighing less than 1 kilogram each and depending entirely on their mother's milk for the first few months of life. The cub's survival depends on Anya's ability to hunt successfully while protecting them from cold, predators, and other tigers that might kill young cats to eliminate future competition. At 6 months old, Anya's cubs have begun accompanying her on hunting expeditions while still nursing and requiring constant supervision. They have developed their adult coat patterns and colors, but lack the strength, experience, and hunting skills necessary for independent survival. This stage of development represents a critical period when cubs learn essential skills while remaining vulnerable to numerous threats, including starvation, predation, disease, and human persecution. The cubs' playful behavior serves important developmental functions as they practice stalking, pouncing, and fighting techniques that will become essential for adult survival. However, this same playfulness makes them conspicuous to human hunters who use thermal cameras and other detection equipment to locate tiger families. The cub's inability to remain silent during extended periods creates additional challenges for Anya as she attempts to avoid human contact while meeting their nutritional and educational needs. On this particular morning, in early February, when temperatures have remained below -30 degrees for nearly 2 weeks and snow depth exceeds 2 meters throughout most of Anya's territory, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors penetrates the forest silence from several kilometers away. Anya's acute hearing immediately recognizes this mechanical noise as different from any natural forest sound, and her behavioral response reflects generations of evolutionary learning about threats that approach from above. The helicopter represents a hunting team that has been tracking Anya's family for 3 days, using a combination of ground-based tracking, aerial surveillance, and intelligence from local informants who report tiger sightings in exchange for payments that can exceed their normal annual incomes. The hunting operation involves Chinese nationals working with Russian criminal networks that specialize in cross-border trafficking of high-value wildlife products. Professional tiger hunters in the Russian Far East typically work during winter months when snow conditions make tracking easier and tiger movements more predictable around limited water sources and prey concentrations. The extreme cold that challenges tiger survival also creates opportunities for hunters who can use heated vehicles and shelters, while their quarry must rely entirely on biological adaptations for warmth and shelter. The helicopter crew uses thermal imaging equipment that can detect tiger body heat through dense forest cover, making concealment extremely difficult for animals whose large size and high metabolic rate create distinctive heat signatures. Ground teams coordinate with aerial surveillance to position blocking forces along likely escape routes, while maintaining communication through encrypted radio systems that cannot be monitored by law enforcement agencies. Anya's response to the approaching helicopter demonstrates the behavioral adaptations that have allowed some tiger populations to persist despite intense hunting pressure. Rather than fleeing immediately in a predictable direction, she leads her cubs deeper into the densest available forest cover, while using terrain features to break sight lines from aerial observation. Her movements reflect an understanding of human hunting tactics developed through previous encounters with aircraft and ground teams. The cubs follow their mother with the absolute trust that characterizes young tigers despite their inability to understand the nature of the threat they face. Their smaller size allows them to move through dense undergrowth more easily than adult tigers, but their limited endurance makes extended flight impossible without frequent rest periods that could allow pursuers to close the distance. The forest terrain where this chase unfolds consists of steep valleys carved by seasonal streams, dense stands of Korean pine and oak that create nearly impenetrable canopies, and scattered rocky outcroppings that provide potential shelter while creating navigation challenges for both tigers and their pursuers.
Snow depth varies dramatically depending on exposure and vegetation cover, creating conditions where breaking through surface crust requires enormous energy expenditure. The helicopter's search pattern reflects professional hunting techniques developed through years of experience tracking large cats in difficult terrain. The aircraft follows systematic grid patterns while using thermal cameras to scan areas where tiger body heat might be detectable through forest cover. When thermal signatures are identified, the helicopter crew directs ground teams toward interception points while maintaining aerial surveillance. Ground tracking teams include experienced hunters who can read tiger sign in snow and interpret behavioral cues that indicate stress, direction of travel, and the presence of cubs. These skills represent traditional knowledge that has been adapted for commercial hunting operations, combining indigenous forest wisdom with modern technology and communication systems. The temperature on this February morning approaches -40°C, creating conditions where exposed human skin can freeze within minutes, while mechanical equipment becomes unreliable and fuel consumption increases dramatically. These extreme conditions affect both hunters and hunted, but tigers possess biological adaptations that provide significant advantages over humans operating in subarctic environments. Anya's thick winter coat consists of dense underfur covered by guard hairs that create insulating air pockets while repelling moisture from snow contact. Her large paws act like snowshoes that distribute weight and provide traction on slippery surfaces, while her powerful leg muscles generate heat through movement that maintains core body temperature even during extended periods of activity. The cubs benefit from similar adaptations but lack the body mass and fat reserves that allow adult tigers to maintain warmth during prolonged exposure to extreme cold. Their survival depends on staying close to their mother while minimizing energy expenditure through unnecessary movement. However, the current flight situation forces them to move rapidly across difficult terrain while burning calories they can ill afford to lose. Anya's hunting strategy under normal circumstances involves patience and stealth that can require hours or even days to position herself for successful attacks on prey animals. The current situation demands sustained movement at speeds that exhaust energy reserves while providing no opportunities for the rest and feeding that would normally occupy most of her time. This metabolic stress affects her judgment and physical capabilities in ways that could prove fatal for the entire family. The helicopter's persistence indicates that the hunting team has identified this particular family as a high-value target worth substantial investment of time and resources. Anya's cubs represent future breeding potential that makes them particularly valuable to trafficking networks planning long-term operations. Additionally, young tigers are often captured alive for private collectors willing to pay premium prices for exotic pets. The illegal pet trade in tigers represents a secondary market that operates parallel to the traditional medicine industry while serving different consumer segments. Wealthy individuals in various countries maintain private collections of exotic animals as status symbols, with tiger cubs selling for $50,000 to $100,000 depending on subspecies and age. However, the challenges and costs of maintaining adult tigers mean that many private tigers are eventually killed for their bones and other body parts.
Breeding tigers in captivity for commercial purposes has become a substantial industry in several countries, with facilities housing thousands of animals in conditions that prioritize production efficiency over animal welfare. These tiger farms produce bones, organs, and other products for both traditional medicine and luxury consumption, while claiming to reduce pressure on wild populations. However, the existence of legal commercial tiger products creates cover for laundering wild-caught materials while perpetuating consumer demand. The distinction between wild and captive-bred tiger products matters significantly in some market segments, where consumers believe wild tigers possess superior potency due to their natural lifestyle and diet. This premium for wild products creates economic incentives for continued hunting, despite the availability of captive-bred alternatives. Additionally, wild tigers often have larger body sizes and different bone densities that command higher prices from discerning consumers. As Anya leads her cubs through increasingly difficult terrain in their attempt to escape the hunting team, their movement patterns reveal the sophisticated navigation abilities that allow tigers to maintain territories covering hundreds of square kilometers. Tigers use scent marking, visual landmarks, and spatial memory to create mental maps of their territories that include information about prey distribution, water sources, shelter locations, and human activity patterns. The current chase route takes the family through areas at the edge of Anya's normal territory, where her knowledge of escape routes and hiding places is less complete than in core areas she knows intimately. This unfamiliarity creates additional risks, as she must evaluate new terrain while maintaining the rapid pace necessary to stay ahead of her pursuers. The cubs' inexperience with extended travel becomes increasingly apparent as they begin showing signs of fatigue and stress after several hours of continuous movement. Young tigers normally rest for 18 to 20 hours per day, with brief periods of activity concentrated around dawn and dusk, when hunting is most effective. The current situation forces them to sustain activity levels that exceed their normal capacity, while operating in environmental conditions that challenge their thermoregulatory abilities. Anya's maternal instincts conflict with survival requirements, as she must balance protecting her cubs against the need for speed and stealth that individual survival would require. Tiger mothers are known to defend cubs against virtually any threat, including larger tigers and armed humans, but the current situation offers no opportunities for defensive stands that might allow successful protection of young animals. The helicopter crew's persistence through several hours of search operations indicates their confidence in eventual success, based on intelligence about Anya's territory boundaries and knowledge of terrain features that limit escape options. Professional hunting operations invest substantial resources in reconnaissance and planning that allows them to predict tiger behavior with considerable accuracy. Ground teams use GPS coordinates provided by aerial surveillance to establish blocking positions along ridgelines and valley bottoms, where tiger movement becomes channeled by natural terrain features. This tactical coordination demonstrates the military-style planning that characterizes modern wildlife trafficking operations, where success depends on systematic application of technology and human resources rather than traditional hunting skills alone. The economic calculations driving this hunting operation reflect market prices that make extended pursuit operations profitable even when they require expensive equipment and multiple personnel for several days. The total value of Anya and her cubs exceeds $200,000 if processed into premium traditional medicine products, justifying operational costs that would be impossible for most forms of commercial hunting. However, the psychological and social costs of tiger hunting extend beyond immediate economic considerations to include environmental destruction, community displacement, and institutional corruption that affects entire regions where trafficking operations are based. The presence of heavily armed criminal groups in remote areas creates security environments where normal social and economic activities become impossible. Breeding tigers in captivity for commercial purposes has become a substantial industry in several countries, with facilities housing thousands of animals in conditions that prioritize production efficiency over animal welfare. These tiger farms produce bones, organs, and other products for both traditional medicine and luxury consumption, while claiming to reduce pressure on wild populations. However, the existence of legal commercial tiger products creates cover for laundering wild-caught materials while perpetuating consumer demand. The distinction between wild and captive-bred tiger products matters significantly in some market segments, where consumers believe wild tigers possess superior potency due to their natural lifestyle and diet. This premium for wild products creates economic incentives for continued hunting, despite the availability of captive-bred alternatives. Additionally, wild tigers often have larger body sizes and different bone densities that command higher prices from discerning consumers. As Anya leads her cubs through increasingly difficult terrain in their attempt to escape the hunting team, their movement patterns reveal the sophisticated navigation abilities that allow tigers to maintain territories covering hundreds of square kilometers. Tigers use scent marking, visual landmarks, and spatial memory to create mental maps of their territories that include information about prey distribution, water sources, shelter locations, and human activity patterns. The current chase route takes the family through areas at the edge of Anya's normal territory, where her knowledge of escape routes and hiding places is less complete than in core areas she knows intimately. This unfamiliarity creates additional risks, as she must evaluate new terrain while maintaining the rapid pace necessary to stay ahead of her pursuers. The cubs' inexperience with extended travel becomes increasingly apparent as they begin showing signs of fatigue and stress after several hours of continuous movement. Young tigers normally rest for 18 to 20 hours per day, with brief periods of activity concentrated around dawn and dusk, when hunting is most effective. The current situation forces them to sustain activity levels that exceed their normal capacity, while operating in environmental conditions that challenge their thermoregulatory abilities. Anya's maternal instincts conflict with survival requirements, as she must balance protecting her cubs against the need for speed and stealth that individual survival would require. Tiger mothers are known to defend cubs against virtually any threat, including larger tigers and armed humans, but the current situation offers no opportunities for defensive stands that might allow successful protection of young animals.
The helicopter crew's persistence through several hours of search operations indicates their confidence in eventual success, based on intelligence about Anya's territory boundaries and knowledge of terrain features that limit escape options. Professional hunting operations invest substantial resources in reconnaissance and planning that allows them to predict tiger behavior with considerable accuracy. Ground teams use GPS coordinates provided by aerial surveillance to establish blocking positions along ridgelines and valley bottoms, where tiger movement becomes channeled by natural terrain features. This tactical coordination demonstrates the military-style planning that characterizes modern wildlife trafficking operations, where success depends on systematic application of technology and human resources rather than traditional hunting skills alone. The economic calculations driving this hunting operation reflect market prices that make extended pursuit operations profitable even when they require expensive equipment and multiple personnel for several days. The total value of Anya and her cubs exceeds $200,000 if processed into premium traditional medicine products, justifying operational costs that would be impossible for most forms of commercial hunting. However, the psychological and social costs of tiger hunting extend beyond immediate economic considerations to include environmental destruction, community displacement, and institutional corruption that affects entire regions where trafficking operations are based. The presence of heavily armed criminal groups in remote areas creates security environments where normal social and economic activities become impossible.
As evening approaches on the second day of pursuit, Anya's tactical options become increasingly limited as exhaustion affects her decision-making abilities, while the cubs show signs of severe stress that could lead to behavioral breakdown. The hunting team's systematic approach has eliminated most escape routes, while maintaining pressure that prevents rest and recovery. The approaching darkness provides both opportunities and additional dangers, as reduced visibility limits helicopter effectiveness while creating navigation challenges that could result in separation or accidents. Night temperatures are forecast to drop below -45°C, creating survival conditions that challenge even healthy tigers while potentially proving fatal for stressed animals with depleted energy reserves. Anya's knowledge of winter shelter locations becomes critical as she must find protection that can accommodate 3 tigers while remaining concealed from thermal detection equipment. Natural shelters in Siberian forests include rock crevices, dense vegetation clusters, and snow caves that can provide windbreak and insulation if properly utilized. The construction of emergency shelters requires energy expenditure and time exposure that could allow hunting teams to close the distance, creating tactical dilemmas where immediate safety conflicts with longer-term escape requirements. Additionally, confined shelter spaces limit mobility options if discovery occurs during rest periods. The cub's deteriorating condition forces Anya to consider whether continued flight remains viable or whether defensive stands might provide better survival chances, despite overwhelming odds against success. Tiger mothers have been documented fighting to the death to protect cubs, but such behavior typically occurs in situations where escape is impossible, rather than as a preferred tactical choice. The hunting team's equipment includes tranquilizer weapons that could allow capture of cubs while minimizing physical damage that might reduce commercial value. However, tranquilizer use in extreme cold conditions creates additional risks of overdose or hypothermia that could result in death rather than successful capture. Professional tiger trafficking operations often include veterinary support and transportation equipment designed to maintain animal health during capture and transport operations. This capability allows them to target live animals for specialty markets while maintaining options for processing into traditional medicine products if live sales cannot be arranged. The international network that would handle Anya's cubs if captured includes specialized facilities in border regions where animals can be held during documentation preparation and transportation arrangements. These facilities often masquerade as legitimate businesses such as circuses, zoos, or research institutions, while actually serving as fronts for trafficking operations. As the third night of pursuit begins, Anya makes a desperate decision to lead her cubs toward human settlements where the presence of people and domestic animals might provide concealment while creating tactical complications for hunting teams reluctant to operate where witnesses might observe their activities. This strategy represents a significant behavioral change for tigers who normally avoid human contact at all costs, demonstrating the extremity of their current situation and Anya's assessment that traditional escape tactics are no longer viable.
The presence of dogs, livestock, and human activity could mask tiger scent and movement while creating acoustic interference that limits tracking effectiveness. However, approaching human settlements also increases risks of encounters with local people who might alert authorities or attempt to capture tigers themselves. Rural communities in tiger habitat areas often maintain weapons and traps for protecting livestock, creating additional threats that must be evaluated against hunting team dangers. The hunting team's response to this tactical shift reveals their operational flexibility and willingness to accept increased risks in pursuit of high-value targets. Professional trafficking operations often include contingency plans for various scenarios, including urban and semi-urban environments where different equipment and tactics become necessary. Local law enforcement capabilities in remote areas of the Russian Far East are often limited by resource constraints, geographic challenges, and corruption that allows trafficking operations to continue with minimal interference. However, the increased visibility associated with operations near settlements creates political pressures that sophisticated criminal organizations prefer to avoid. The economic impact of tiger trafficking on local communities includes both positive and negative effects that create complex relationships between residents and criminal organizations. Hunting teams provide employment and payments that can significantly improve living standards in impoverished rural areas, while their presence also brings violence, corruption, and environmental destruction. Conservation organizations working in tiger habitat areas must address these economic realities through programs that provide alternative livelihoods and economic incentives for protection rather than exploitation. Success requires long-term commitment and funding that can compete with the immediate financial benefits offered by trafficking networks. The story of Anya and her cubs illustrates broader conservation challenges where individual animal welfare intersects with economic systems that operate on global scales while affecting local ecosystems and communities. Their survival depends not only on immediate tactical decisions but also on larger political and economic changes that could reduce demand for tiger products while providing sustainable alternatives for human communities.
International cooperation between source and consumer countries remains essential for addressing tiger trafficking effectively, as enforcement efforts in one country can be undermined by weak controls elsewhere in the supply chain. Recent improvements in cooperation between Russian and Chinese authorities have led to some successful prosecutions, but the scale of trafficking networks requires sustained effort across multiple jurisdictions. Technology offers new tools for both conservation and trafficking that create ongoing arms races between law enforcement and criminal organizations. Satellite monitoring, DNA analysis, and digital forensics provide enhanced investigative capabilities, while encrypted communications, sophisticated transportation methods, and corruption networks allow traffickers to adapt and continue operations. The ultimate resolution of Anya's story depends on factors beyond her individual courage and intelligence, encompassing market forces, political decisions, and cultural changes that operate on temporal and spatial scales, far removed from the immediate crisis facing her family in the Siberian wilderness. Her survival would represent hope for tiger conservation, while her death would symbolize the ongoing failure to address one of conservation's most urgent challenges. As dawn breaks on the fourth day, Anya's cubs show critical signs of hypothermia and exhaustion that indicate their survival now depends on finding shelter and food within hours rather than days. Their mother's condition remains better, but reflects the accumulated stress of 4 days without adequate rest or nutrition, while maintaining constant vigilance against multiple threats. The hunting team's persistence through adverse weather and challenging conditions demonstrates their confidence in eventual success based on intelligence about tiger movement limitations and knowledge of terrain features that restrict escape options. Their professional equipment and systematic approach have eliminated most variables that might allow prey animals to escape through luck or chance. However, tigers have evolved through millions of years of predator-prey interactions that have selected for intelligence, adaptability, and survival instincts that sometimes overcome apparently impossible odds. Anya's story is not yet finished, and her species' remarkable capacity for survival under extreme conditions provides hope even in the most desperate circumstances. The broader context of tiger conservation includes both success stories and continuing challenges that illustrate the complexity of protecting endangered species in a world dominated by human economic activities. Recent population increases in some protected areas demonstrate that tigers can recover when given adequate protection and habitat, while continuing declines in other regions show that threats remain severe. Consumer education efforts in traditional medicine markets have achieved some success in reducing demand for tiger products, particularly among younger generations who are more responsive to conservation messages. However, changing deeply held cultural beliefs requires sustained effort over generational timeframes that extend well beyond typical conservation project cycles. The development of synthetic alternatives to tiger bone products offers promising opportunities for meeting consumer needs without requiring continued exploitation of wild populations. However, market acceptance of substitutes depends on education, quality control, and pricing strategies that can compete with traditional products while maintaining therapeutic credibility. Economic development strategies that provide sustainable livelihoods for communities in taiga habitat areas represent long-term solutions that address root causes rather than symptoms of conservation problems. Ecotourism, sustainable forestry, and conservation employment can generate revenues that exceed those available from trafficking while creating economic incentives for habitat protection. The international legal framework for taiga protection continues evolving through new agreements, enhanced enforcement mechanisms, and improved cooperation between countries. However, implementation remains challenging due to resource limitations, corruption, and competing priorities that affect law enforcement capabilities in many taiga range countries. Anya's immediate survival depends on her ability to locate shelter and security for her cubs while avoiding the hunting team that continues pursuing her family across the vast Siberian landscape. Her story represents both individual tragedy and species-level crisis that reflects fundamental conflicts between economic systems and conservation objectives. The resolution of this conflict requires changes in human behavior and economic incentives that extend far beyond the immediate circumstances facing individual taiga families. Success depends on coordinated action across multiple levels, from international policy frameworks to individual consumer choices that collectively determine whether tigers will persist as wild animals or exist only in captivity and traditional medicine products. Taiga conservation represents a test of humanity's ability to coexist with other species in a world where human activities dominate most ecosystems. The choices made in the coming decades will determine whether future generations inherit a world where tigers continue to roam free, or one where they exist only in zoos and photographs as monuments to conservation failure. The economic forces driving taiga trafficking operate with relentless efficiency that reflects market mechanisms optimized for short-term profit rather than long-term sustainability. Changing these systems requires sustained political will and economic investments that compete with immediate commercial interests while providing benefits that may not be fully realized for decades. Anya's courage in protecting her cubs despite overwhelming odds exemplifies the survival instincts that have allowed tigers to persist through previous conservation crises. Her story continues as she leads her family toward an uncertain future where their survival depends on factors ranging from immediate tactical decisions to global policy changes that could reshape the market forces currently driving her species toward extinction. The dawn of the fourth day brings new challenges and opportunities as weather conditions change and terrain features create different tactical possibilities for both hunters and hunted. Anya's experience and intelligence have kept her family alive through 4 days of pursuit, but their ultimate survival depends on reaching sanctuary areas where human threats are minimized and natural behaviors can resume. The broader significance of individual survival stories like Anya's lies in their representation of larger conservation struggles that determine the future of biodiversity on Earth. Each taiga that survives represents genetic diversity, ecological function, and cultural heritage that cannot be recovered once lost through extinction. The intersection of traditional medicine, commercial markets, and wildlife conservation creates complex challenges that require nuanced solutions addressing multiple stakeholder needs and cultural values. Success depends on finding approaches that respect traditional knowledge while protecting endangered species through sustainable alternatives and effective enforcement. As Anya continues leading her cubs through the vast Siberian wilderness toward an uncertain future, her story embodies both the immediate crisis facing taiga populations and the hope that intelligent, determined conservation efforts can still prevent extinction of one of Earth's most magnificent predators. The outcome of her journey will be determined by factors both within and far beyond her control, representing the complex interactions between individual animals and global systems that ultimately determine conservation success or failure.